The last alien of her race found a human, and pleaded for his help. David Martinez had always been a simple man with simple pleasures. His small repair shop on the outskirts of Nevada's desert served the occasional trucker and lost traveler. The neon sign flickered against the starlit sky as he worked late into the night, the familiar hum of his tools bringing comfort to his solitary existence. At 32, David had grown accustomed to the quiet life, far from the chaos of the cities. The explosion that lit up the desert changed everything. A brilliant streak of fire carved across the heavens, followed by a thunderous crash that shook his workshop. David dropped his wrench and rushed outside, his heart pounding as he watched smoke rising from a crater barely half a mile away. The rational part of his mind screamed airplane crash, but something deep in his gut told him this was different. He grabbed his emergency kit and flashlight, jumping into his old pickup truck. The desert terrain was rough, but David had lived here long enough to navigate the rocky paths. As he approached the crash site, the acrid smell of burning metal filled his nostrils. But there was something else, something almost sweet, like ozone after a thunderstorm. The crater was massive, easily 50 feet across. At its center lay what could only be described as a ship, though unlike any aircraft David had ever seen. Its surface was smooth and crystalline, pulsing with faint blue light that seemed to breathe. Steam rose from its hull, and strange symbols glowed along its edges. That's when he heard it. A sound that made his blood run cold. Not quite human, but unmistakably a cry for help. David scrambled down into the crater, his flashlight beam dancing across the alien craft. A section of the hull had been torn away, revealing a chamber within. And there, trapped beneath a fallen beam, was something that defied every rational thought in his mind. She was humanoid, but clearly not human. Her skin held a pale, almost translucent quality that seemed to shimmer in the light. Silver hair fell across her face, and when she looked up at him, her eyes were the color of deep ocean storms. She was beautiful in a way that transcended species. But what struck David most was the intelligence in those eyes and the unmistakable fear. She spoke, her voice melodic but strained. The words were foreign, yet somehow David understood the desperation behind them. She tried to move, wincing in pain as the metal beam pressed against her leg. Without hesitation, David set his flashlight aside and examined the situation. The beam was heavy, but not impossible to move. David positioned himself carefully, using his years of mechanical experience to find the right leverage point. With a grunt of effort, he lifted the beam just enough for her to pull herself free. She gasped, a sound that was both alien and heartbreakingly familiar. "Thank you," she whispered, and this time the words were in perfect English. David stared in amazement. "You speak our language?" "I learn quickly," she replied, struggling to sit up. "My name is Vera. I am Colossian." She paused, her expression growing darker. "I am the last Colossian." The weight of those words hit David like a physical blow. The last of her entire species. He looked around the wreckage, understanding now why. She had seemed so desperate. This wasn't just a crash landing. This was the end of an entire civilization reduced to one injured woman in a desert crater. "My people," Vera continued, her voice breaking. "They were destroyed, hunted. I escaped with the last ship, but they followed me here." She gripped David's arm, her touch surprisingly warm. "They will come for me. For Earth, you must help me. Warn your people." David felt the world shifting around him. An hour ago, his biggest concern had been fixing a broken alternator. Now he was being asked to help save humanity from an alien threat. He looked into Vera's eyes, seeing not just fear but hope. She had chosen to trust him, a simple mechanic. "In the middle of nowhere. What do you need me to do?" he asked. David helped Vera from the wreckage, her weight slight against his shoulder. Her injury appeared to be healing already, the skin knitting together with a faint blue glow. As they reached the rim of the crater, she stumbled, exhaustion finally taking its toll. "My ship," she gasped, looking back at the smoking remains. "The data core. Everything about my people, our history, our knowledge. It's all there." David saw the tears in her storm-colored eyes, not just for her physical pain, but for the loss of everything she had ever known. Without thinking, he pulled her closer, offering what comfort he could to this stranger from the stars. "We'll figure this out," he said softly. "But first, you need rest." Back at his shop, David cleared space in his small apartment above the garage. Vera sat on his couch, looking fragile despite her otherworldly beauty. The contrast struck him. Here was a being from another world, technologically advanced beyond imagination. Yet she seemed so vulnerable in his simple home. "Tell me about them," David said, bringing her water. "The ones who destroyed your people." Vera's expression hardened. "The Ravagers. They consume entire civilizations, strip planets bare of resources and life. They see other species as obstacles. Or food," she shuddered. "My people tried to fight, but they were too many. We were scholars, artists, healers. We were not prepared for such brutality." David listened, his heart breaking for her loss. "How did you escape?" "My father was the keeper of our historical archives. When the Ravagers came, he loaded me into the last functioning ship with everything we could save. He told me to find a world where our knowledge could survive." She looked at David with those incredible eyes. "He chose Earth because of your species' potential for growth and adaptation. Your father sounds like a wise man." "He died buying me time to escape," Vera whispered. They sat in silence for a moment. David found himself studying her features. The way the light seemed to dance beneath her skin, how her hair moved as if touched by an invisible breeze. She was alien, yes, but there was something fundamentally familiar about her emotions, her grief, her hope. "The Ravagers," David said finally. "You said they followed you here?" Vera nodded grimly. "Their scout ships are perhaps a day behind me. They will scan the planet, catalog its resources and defenses. Then they will call for the harvester fleet." "How long do we have?" "Perhaps a week before the main force arrives." "But David," she placed her hand on his, "your military, your weapons, they will not be enough. The Ravagers have destroyed civilizations far more advanced than yours." David felt a chill run down his spine. "Then what hope do we have?" Vera was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at him with something that might have been wonder. "You saved me, a complete stranger from another world, and you did not hesitate to help. Most species would have run in fear or tried to capture me for study. But you chose compassion. Anyone would have done the same." "No," Vera said firmly. "They would not. In all my people's travels, we rarely encountered such instinctive kindness. It is why my father believed in humanity's potential." David felt something stirring in his chest, a connection to this woman that transcended species and worlds. "What did your people learn about us?" "That you are survivors. That you adapt and overcome impossible odds. That you protect those you care about with a fierceness that borders on madness." She smiled, the first genuine smile he had seen from her. "And that when you love completely." Their eyes met, and David felt the universe shift around them. This was more than just attraction. It was recognition, as if they had been waiting their entire lives to find each other across the vast darkness of space. "Vera," he said softly. "I know," she replied. "I feel it too." Outside, the desert wind howled, but inside David's small apartment, two beings from different worlds had found something worth fighting for. Tomorrow would bring challenges they could barely imagine, But tonight they had each other. David reached for her hand, and when their fingers intertwined, he felt her warmth flow through him. It was electric, alive, and completely right. "Whatever comes," he said, "we face it together." Vera squeezed his hand, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Together. The morning sun painted the desert in shades of gold and amber as David woke to find Vera standing at his window. She had changed somehow during the night. The desperate, frightened refugee was gone, replaced by someone who radiated quiet strength. Her silver hair caught the light like spun starlight, and when she turned to him, her smile was warm enough to melt his heart. "Good morning, David Martinez," she said, and the way she spoke his name made it sound like poetry. "Did you sleep at all?" he asked, moving to stand beside her. "Colossians need less rest than humans. I spent the night accessing what remained of my ship's data core remotely." She held up her hand, and David saw thin lines of blue light beneath her skin, like circuits made of starlight. "I managed to recover something important." "What?" "The location of a Colossian research station hidden in your asteroid belt. If we can reach it, there might be weapons technology that could help defend Earth." David nodded, though the magnitude of what she was suggesting terrified him. "How do we get there?" "That is the problem. The station requires 2 life signs to access. It was designed so that no single person could activate its defenses alone." She looked at him meaningfully. "It needs both of us." The implications hit David immediately. "You're asking me to leave Earth, to go into space with you. I am asking you to trust me completely, to leave everything you know behind." Vera moved closer, her hand finding his cheek. "I would not ask this if there were any other way." David covered her hand with his own. The idea of leaving Earth should have terrified him, but looking into Vera's eyes, he felt only certainty. "When do we leave?" "Tonight. I have been rebuilding my ship's emergency systems. It will not be comfortable, but it will get us there." She paused, studying his face. "David, you must understand. This journey will change you. The technology required to survive in space will alter your biology permanently. You would become something between human and Colossian. Would I still be me? You would still be you, but you would also be more." David thought about his simple life, his quiet repair shop, the routine that had defined his existence. Then he looked at Vera, this incredible woman who had literally fallen from the stars into his world. The choice was easier than breathing. "I love you," he said simply. Vera's eyes widened. Among her people, such declarations were sacred, not given lightly. "David, you do not fully understand what that means to a Colossian, and explain it to me. When we love, we bond completely. Our life forces intertwine. We share thoughts, emotions, even lifespan. To love a Colossian is to become part of them. Forever." David smiled, pulling her closer. "That sounds perfect to me." Vera's composure finally cracked, and tears ran down her cheeks like liquid starlight. "I love you too, David Martinez. More than the stars themselves." When they kissed, David felt the change beginning immediately. Light flowed between them, warm and electric. He could feel Vera's emotions mixing with his own, her memories becoming part of him. He saw glimpses of her world before the Ravagers came, beautiful cities that floated in crystal skies, art that moved and sang, people who lived in harmony with their planet, and he felt her loneliness, the crushing weight of being the last of her kind. But beneath that, he felt something else. Hope, love, the certainty that she was no longer alone. "The bond is forming," Vera whispered against his lips. "Can you feel it?" David could feel everything. Her heartbeat matching his own, her thoughts becoming clearer in his mind, her very essence becoming part of him. It should have been overwhelming, but instead it felt like coming home. "I can feel you," he said wonderingly. Your thoughts, your memories. It's incredible. And I can feel your strength, your courage, your unshakable determination to protect what you love." She smiled through her tears. "No wonder my father believed in humanity." They spent the day preparing for their journey, but also learning about each other in ways that transcended normal human experience. David could feel Vera's knowledge flowing into him, understanding of technology and science that his human mind should not have been able to grasp. In return, she experienced his memories of Earth, the simple pleasures of his life, the beauty he found in everyday moments. As the sun set over the desert, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, they stood together beside Vera's rebuilt ship. It was smaller now, sleeker, designed for stealth rather than comfort. "Are you ready?" Vera asked. David looked back at his shop, his home, his entire life. Then he looked at the woman who had become his heart, his soul, his future. "I'm ready." Hand in hand, they walked toward the ship and toward a destiny that would determine the fate of two worlds. The interior of Vera's ship was unlike anything David had ever imagined. The walls seemed to be made of living crystal that pulsed with soft light, responding to their presence. As they settled into seats that molded themselves to their bodies, David felt the ship come alive around them. "The transformation will be intense," Vera warned, her hand finding his as the ship's systems engaged. "But I will be with you every step of the way." David squeezed her hand, feeling their bond strengthen with each passing moment. "I trust you completely." The ship lifted off silently, Earth falling away beneath them with breathtaking speed. But David barely noticed the view. The change Vera had warned him about was beginning, and it was unlike anything he could have prepared for. Fire seemed to race through his veins as his body adapted to the alien technology. His skin began to take on a subtle luminescence, similar to Vera's butt, uniquely his own. His senses expanded dramatically. He could hear the ship's systems like a symphony, feel the gravitational pull of distant planets, see colors that had no names in any human language. "Breathe," Vera whispered, her voice both audible and telepathic now. "Let it happen. Do not fight it." Through their bond, David felt Vera guiding him, her consciousness wrapped around his like a protective embrace. He could feel her love, her strength, her absolute faith in him. It anchored him as his human limitations fell away one by one. When the transformation finally stabilized, David opened eyes that now held flecks of the same storm blue as Vera's. He looked at his hands and saw the same subtle patterns of light beneath his skin that marked her as collusion. "How do you feel?" Vera asked softly. David took inventory of his new capabilities. His mind felt clearer, faster, able to process information at incredible speeds. His body was stronger, more resilient. But most importantly, he could feel Vera's presence in his mind like a warm constant, their souls truly intertwined. "I feel like myself," he said wonderingly. "But more than myself. You are the first human to undergo this transformation," Vera told him. "You are unique in 2 galaxies now." As they traveled through space, David marveled at the universe through his enhanced senses. Stars were not just points of light, but complex energy signatures. Planets sang with their own unique frequencies. And through it all, he felt Vera's wonder at experiencing space travel through human eyes, even transformed ones. "There," Vera said, pointing to what looked like empty space. "The research station." To his enhanced vision, David could now see a massive structure hidden among the asteroids, cloaked by technology that bent light and energy around it. As they approached, the station came alive, recognizing Vera's genetic signature. But something was wrong. Warning lights began flashing throughout their ship. "Ravager scouts," Vera said, her voice tight with fear. "They found us." Through the ship's sensors, David saw them. 3 sleek vessels emerging from the asteroid field, their hulls black as the void between stars. They moved with predatory grace, closing in on their position. "Can we outrun them?" David asked. "Not to the station. They would destroy it before we could access the weapons." Vera's hands flew over the control panel. "But there is another way." "What?" "The station's defenses. They are automatic, but they need to be activated manually from the outside." She looked at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "One of us would have to stay behind." David felt her, planned through their bond before she spoke it. She intended to sacrifice herself, to give him time to reach the station and activate Earth's defenses. "No," he said firmly. "We do this together or not at all. David, please. Earth needs those weapons. My people's knowledge must survive. Then we find another way." David's mind raced, enhanced by collusion technology, but driven by purely human stubbornness. What if we don't try to outrun them? What if we go through them? Vera stared at him. "The ship is not designed for combat, but it is designed for precision. And you said yourself that humans are survivors who adapt to impossible odds." David smiled grimly. "Trust me." Through their bond, Vera felt his certainty, his absolute refusal to accept defeat. It was a very human trait, this stubborn determination, in the face of overwhelming odds. And it was exactly what they needed. "Show me how to fly this thing," David said, working together, their minds linked. They became something greater than the sum of their parts. David's human intuition, combined with Vera's technological knowledge, created a pilot unlike anything the Ravagers had ever faced. They dove toward the enemy ships, weaving between asteroid fields at impossible speeds. The Ravagers, expecting easy prey, found themselves outmaneuvered by a hybrid consciousness that thought in ways their computers could not predict. "There!" Vera shouted. "The station's activation port." David spun their ship in a maneuver that should have torn it apart, sliding between 2 massive asteroids to reach the hidden station. As Vera activated the ancient collusion defenses, David felt a surge of hope that the station came alive with devastating beauty, its weapons systems painting the asteroid field with beams of pure energy. The Ravager scouts were destroyed in moments, their advanced warning systems silenced forever. "We did it," Vera breathed. But David was already thinking ahead. "Now we get those weapons to Earth and prepare for the real fight." The journey back to Earth felt both eternal and impossibly brief. With the collusion weapon schematics safely stored in their ship's data core, David and Vera raced against time to reach home before the Ravager main fleet arrived. Through their bond, they worked as one mind. David's human ingenuity combining with Vera's technological expertise to push their small ship beyond its design limits. "The fleet is already in your solar system," Vera announced, her enhanced senses picking up the massive energy signatures long before Earth's instruments could detect them. "Hundreds of ships, David. Maybe thousands." David felt a chill of fear, but also a familiar stubborn determination. "Then we better make sure we get there first." As Earth grew larger in their view screen, David saw the planet with new eyes. Through Vera's memories, he understood what his world looked like to an alien species. Beautiful but fragile, teeming, with life but virtually defenseless against the horror approaching from deep space. "The governments will never believe us in time," David said, watching the first signs of panic beginning to spread across the planet's communication networks. Early warning systems were finally detecting the approaching fleet. "Then we do not wait for them to believe," Vera replied. "The collusion weapons can be adapted to work with human technology, but they need a central control point. Someone who understands both systems." David understood immediately. "Someone like us." They landed not at a military base or government facility, but back at David's small repair shop in the Nevada desert. It seemed almost laughably inadequate as a command center for humanity's last stand, but it was here that their love story had begun, and it felt right that it should be here where they made their final stand. Working with desperate efficiency, they transformed David's humble workshop into something that belonged in a science fiction movie. Vera's technology interfaced seamlessly with human electronics, creating a hybrid system that neither species could have developed alone. The weapons network is online, Vera announced as power grids across the planet began adapting to carry collision energy patterns. But David, the targeting system requires constant adjustment. One of us must maintain the connection at all times. Through their bond, David felt what she was not saying. The energy required to coordinate a planetary defense network would burn out a normal human nervous system in minutes. Even with his enhanced physiology, he might not survive the process. "We'll do it together," he said firmly. "Our bond makes us stronger than either of us alone." As the first Ravager ships entered Earth's atmosphere, David and Vera joined hands over the control interface. Their consciousness merged completely, becoming a single entity that existed in both the physical world and the energy patterns of the defense network. Through thousands of newly adapted satellites, ground installations, and military vessels, they became the planet's nervous system. Every weapon on Earth responded to their combined will, striking with impossible precision at targets moving faster than human reflexes could track. The battle was unlike anything in human history. Ravager ships fell like burning stars, their advanced technology useless against weapons that seemed to anticipate their every move. But the cost was enormous. David could feel the strain burning through his enhanced nervous system like acid. "I can't hold on much longer," he gasped. "You are not alone," Vera whispered, and through their bond he felt her pouring her own life force into him, sustaining him even as it drained her own strength. The tide turned when David made a connection that pure logic never could have found. Seeing the Ravager fleet's formation through human eyes, he recognized a pattern. They moved like a pack of wolves, but with one crucial difference. They had no instinct for self-preservation when their prey fought back effectively. "They're not used to real resistance," he told Vera through their mental link. "Every species they faced before either ran or died quickly. They don't know how to handle a prolonged fight." Using this insight, they began targeting not just individual ships, but the fleet's command structure. Each successful strike sent waves of confusion through the Ravager ranks. These beings who had conquered 100 worlds had never faced prey that refused to stay dead. As the last Ravager command ship exploded in Earth's upper atmosphere, David and Vera collapsed together, their energy completely spent. But they had done it. Earth was safe, at least for now. In the days that followed, as the world struggled to understand what had happened, David and Vera quietly returned to their simple life in the desert. The governments would study the collision. Technology, Earth would become a stronger world. And somewhere among the stars, other species would learn that humanity was not easy prey. But for David and Vera, the most important victory was simpler. They had each other. The last of her kind and the first of his kind to be transformed by love across the void of space. "No regrets?" Vera asked one evening as they watched the sunset paint the desert in shades of gold and crimson. David pulled her closer, feeling their bond as strong as ever, despite everything they had endured. "Only one," he said with a smile. "I wish I could have met your father. I would have liked to thank him for believing in humanity." Vera laughed, the sound like music across the desert wind. "He would have loved you, David Martinez, almost as much as I do." As the stars emerged in the darkening sky, two beings who had found love across the impossible vastness of space settled into a quiet happiness that could weather any storm the universe might send their way. Their story had begun with a crash in the desert and a desperate plea for help. It had become something far greater. A love that transcended species, a bond that saved two worlds, and proof that sometimes the most extraordinary stories begin in the most ordinary places. The end was also a beginning, as all the best love stories are.